What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Live Beyond Average podcast. I am Jordan Miller, the founder of Run to Gun and Seeker Supplements, and jumping on today because I wanted to share with you guys what I've been doing from a training perspective all spring and all summer. We're already into late August here and the last 5-6 days of August, and how I kicked off some new training styles. It was actually more of an adjustment to a training style back in May, and how it's correlated over the summer, how I've had to employ some massive patience into this type of training in order to get to where I'm at, in order where I'm going to have to get down the road. And it's quite a ways down the road. And so how much patience has to be employed in that. I wanted to use as an opportunity to really encourage you guys throughout your fitness journey. I've been working out since I was like 13, 14 years old. I'm 33 now, so I have 2 decades of training or workout experience for myself, and I also have over a decade of training clients experience. So there's a lot that goes into it, but there's always new ways and new things I'm learning and employing within my own training regimen. And so back in May, I was challenged by a guy. I was doing one of his challenges, a mentor of mine, and within his challenge, he wanted me to run 2 5Ks a week. And so this really wasn't when I say challenge, it really wasn't a physical challenge that I was participating in. It was definitely more spiritual challenge, doing these readings, doing these devotionals. But within all of that, he wanted me running 2 5Ks a week. Well, from a fitness side of things, I've been training nonstop for 2 decades, doing different type of workouts and training and lifting weights and metcons. Things like that aren't necessarily that difficult for me to get up and go do. But if there is one thing that I have never loved, I've never been necessarily built for, I am a power sprinting athlete, fast athlete. Everything I do is like max heart rate style stuff. Going out and doing and switching up to that endurance style training where you're running out, and this is just 3.1 miles, was definitely a change up and took a mental shift for me to be able to accomplish. I remember earlier in May going out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go hammer out this 5K because he wants me, I'm going to be doing 2 of these a week. So I went and did my first one, and it didn't even all have to be ran. Like the instructions were walk, run, crawl this 5K, just get it done and get 2 of them done a week. And so obviously in my mind though, I'm a good shape individual. I'm like, well, I'm running this whole thing. And I powered through it. It sucked for sure. And it took me 37 minutes and 7 seconds. So definitely I'm not beating anybody on the track with this long distance time. And so I'm like, all right, cool. Like I feel good about it. I'm going to build on this. And so the summer starts rolling on. I'm sticking to my 2 a week. And I'm like a month in, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm kind of enjoying this breakup in my training. So much of my weight training over the years has been a lot of metcons. So I'm in the gym. It takes me quite a while to warm up because I got to be warm for these metcons so I don't get an injury. Because in these metcons, you're pushing heavy weight, and you're doing it fast, and you're doing several exercise movements together for several rounds. And it takes tremendous focus. It takes maximal effort, and it's definitely it can be wearing and tearing on the body over time. And I've been doing it for a long time without a whole lot of break from it. And so I'm like, I really need a break from this. I need to step away from this style of training, adjust my training a little bit, and think about what my goals are. And I really needed to step back and create some vision and revision what I was feeling inside of me, what I needed from a physical perspective and a mental perspective. And I was like, okay, I really want to continue to keep the muscular build I had built. So way back after my college athletic days, I got into men's physique, bodybuilding, where I put on a lot of size. And I'm like, okay, I want to keep my size, my shape, my symmetry, but I want to continue to build my my endurance base, my aerobic capacity. And so it made me really feel good because I started stepping into the gym for my weight training segment portions of the week, and I could just do my strength work and my hypertrophy work and take the adequate breaks that I needed in between my sets and my lifts and not feel guilty about it, because I knew that I was going to be working on the endurance side later in my runs. And so I was really enjoying this. So I started this, and I have this goal in the back of my head what I want to accomplish in the long term. And so as I'm working toward this, I'm running, and it's just actually like I'm not fast. And so I'm running, and I run with a couple guys on a what day a week. I have another guy that I stay accountable with, a friend of mine, that we are both running and kind of have similar goals. And my times, my mile paces are like nothing that's like crazy gonna beat anybody or impressive. And so I'm like doing more research into this, and I'm studying like, okay, how do I continue to build and run for these long amounts of time? Because what I want to do is run for this long amount of time. And what do I have to do that? So I start like heart rate training and heart rate variability training. And so I start this up and start really focusing on not elevating my heart rate over a certain amount while I run. Well, everything I've done in the past has been max heart rate, get it up, keep rocking, go as hard as I can, and maintaining this maximal heart rate, like 80% plus heart rate throughout my training sessions. And so now I'm actually flipping that, and you have to start training yourself out of this years and years of doing this into something different, where it's like, okay, I want to bring my heart rate down, maintain it, and not exceed a certain heart rate for this long extended period of time. And so if many of you were following my Instagram stories last night, I was really focusing on that. I had a long run last night. I ran for an hour and 43 minutes or something like that. And it was late at night. It was out in the dark on the trails. And I was keeping my heart rate at 147 and below. And there was a couple times on these big hills, these big inclines I'm doing. They're an extended incline for like a mile. And I started getting up those, and my heart rate starts climbing. So I really have to, as I'm training that, I have to like tone back my pace, which for most runners or most people looking at running or myself, you get competitive and you want to, well, my pace is going to, my mile time average is going to come way down if I slow down. And so I have to, what I really have to do throughout this as I'm training is employ so much patience and set pride aside in order to achieve the longer goal. And so over these last several weeks and a month and a half or so, where I've been employing this portion of training and having to be like, okay, I have to sacrifice pace in order to build this aerobic capacity to accomplish this. And so by being very disciplined when my pace, my heart rate's exceeding where I need it to be, and making myself slow down my pace, settle down, focus on my breathing, because I know in the long term by doing that, my aerobic capacity is going to be up. I'm going to be able to run for much longer, and actually my overall pace will then be better just because of that, because of training my heart rate to stay lower. And so it's funny because where I ran last night, I ran 8.5 miles in hour 43. I think it was like a 12-minute pace, or like a 12:0 something. I can't remember what the watch said, but right at 12-minute pace-ish, and a little over. And it was really funny because it was just like 3.5 weeks ago. I was out at that same place, and I went out to run 5 miles. And I'm like, I got to hit 5. I got to break. I was running into this wall. So the previous 2 weeks before that, so 4.5 and 5.5 weeks ago and 6 weeks ago, I was going out and running multiple times a week. And I kept hitting these walls and barriers at like 2.5 miles, 3.5 miles, or like even 4 miles, where I would go out to set myself to run 6 to 8, and I was just hitting these walls at over 3, around that time frame. It was always a little different every single run. And for one, I was definitely going out of the gate too fast and getting my heart rate up too long. I wasn't trained to sustain yet. So that was one thing. Second thing was a mental wall. And so I went out to the same trail system, and I'm like, I'm gonna put in 6 to 8, and I hit 5 that day. So I was really pumped that I hit 5. I broke past that mental barrier of like that 3.5, and I hit 5, but I was still like, I'm not hitting this 6 to 8 that I'm wanting to hit. I broke past one barrier, but I'm still not hitting my other barrier. So just 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, I drove out west with my wife, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit this Badlands trail system it's 5 miles in, 5 miles out. Like I'm running 10 miles. Forget the freaking 6 to 8. I'm just going to go 10, and I'm just going to skip over it, break barriers, break walls, and get my mind right. And so I slow my pace down, and I'm working at this pacing. I'm going to say discipline to this pacing. And I nailed the 10 miles, and I'm really pumped. It was actually 10.34. I was really pumped that I nailed it. It took me 2 hours and 7 minutes and like 7 seconds or 30 seconds. I can't remember. So 2:07 and a half. And I was jacked because I felt pretty good. The last mile and a half, 2 miles, a mile and a half, two. I could definitely feel fatigue. The last mile for sure, hamstrings. I was dealing with some dehydration. Knees were starting to hurt a little bit. Really had to push to finish. Felt really proud of myself. Felt pretty good though. And so I could automatically start feeling like, okay, the discipline is sticking at this heart rate zone that I'm supposed to be training out, that I've researched, is it can definitely pay off. And so I've been sticking to this hard, then even more so in the last 3 weeks. And I get to Monday morning this week. Today's Wednesday. I get to Monday morning this week, and I go out with I have a men's group that we go out every Monday morning and we run together. It's a pretty light run, and we run together, we pray together, we do devotionals every week. And I go out early because I'm like, okay, I need to extend my run time compared to what we run with the group. So I go out early, I put in a little time before I run with the group, then I run with the group, and I finish up, and I'm like, man, I am feeling really strong. I'm feeling really good. My heart rate's staying low. This is paying off. I can really start feeling the difference. And so then I lifted that afternoon, went into Tuesday, I had a lift, and then I went into last night late, and I started my run. I knew I had to put in a long run last night because I have a men's summit this weekend, and I'm not going to be able to put in my long run on Saturday. So got to get my long run in. I get out to the trails at 9 p.m. last night. It's dark, so I throw a headlamp on. I'm actually really looking forward to kind of being out there alone and doing this. And I'm like, okay, I got to focus on the pacing. And I'm like, you're running 90 minutes for sure. And I kind of had a little more than that in my head, but I'm like, 90, you got to hit. I didn't know how my body would quite respond from Tuesday or from Monday, the double training. I already had lifted weights again then on Tuesday. And so I really focused on my fueling, my hydration all day, went out and started pacing this. Automatically the first mile in this trail system is up, it's elevated, so my heart rate's up. So I'm like, okay, just give yourself time, let this heart rate settle in, don't stress about it. Start working on my heart rate dropping down again. I go up on a second round of this because I'm going to run essentially 3 laps of this trail system. Is going to be about 90, hour and a half, a little bit more than that. And I started going up the second time up on this incline, and my heart rate's like just skyrocketing again. And I'm like, okay, you got to like slow it down. So I was like, man, and my body I was feeling good last night, and I just wanted to go. But I knew, and this was at like 45 minutes, and so I knew in order to get myself further, to get another hour out of this, I was like, hey man, you got to slow down. You got to follow the training protocol that has been set out. And so much of it for me was the fact that you're already thinking about being done. Our mind goes to, okay, I want to get done. I want to get to the finish line. I want to get to the finish line, versus employing the patience and really just being where you're at and enjoying the process of where we're currently at in the training and where you're currently running, and just being super present. And so I just started thinking about that and meditating on that, and I slowed my heart rate down like really fast. And for the next hour, 58 minutes of training, I didn't have any problem with getting my heart rate overly elevated. I kept it pretty dang good and down to where I wanted, and absolutely crushed it. Went an hour 43 and a half or something. So 13 more minutes than what I had scheduled, and felt really strong. Ran 8.5 miles right there. Pace, if I could have easily kept running, I would have beat my 2-mile time by like 6 minutes. And when I ran out in the Badlands there 3 weeks ago, it was pretty flat. I mean, there's some like little ruggedy terrain portions of it, but as far as like up down elevation, there's not much. And this trail system I was on last night has some really good elevations. And so like I would have beat my 2-mile time pretty adequately, and it did it in much rougher terrain. And that was just in a 3-week window that progressed. And so looking back on it, I was really reflecting on it last night. I actually really struggled to sleep just because you're amped up. And so really thinking about that and thinking about how, okay, like it's paying off. The sticking to the protocol is paying off. My endurance capacity is going up so much, which then in turn is actually, I'm being so much more efficient. And so my mile times are actually going to increase over time with that. Even though it feels like you're going slower, over time, those are going to average out to be faster because of my distance increases and my time increases here. So I'm really pumped that it's paying off, and it's taken me May, June, July, August. It's taken me a lot of time, but now that you're reaping those rewards, a lot of times these things aren't happening fast, you guys, but sticking to protocols, giving yourself that window of opportunity absolutely matters. And I really felt good living this in these last 3 months, because I've preached that so much to clients over the years of, hey, you have to, because a lot of times stuff doesn't happen in 8 weeks or 12 weeks for clients, and for people that are on their health and fitness journey, because think about how long it's been since you've trained like this, and that you haven't worked on your body. It's been years for a lot of people. It's been half of a lifetime for a lot of people, and things don't just switch over and happen in a 12-week time period. And so I really just preach like, hey, the window of opportunity needs to be there. We don't get discouraged after just 8 weeks or 12 weeks of doing this. The window of opportunity needs to stay open, stay consistent, and stay disciplined, and great things will happen because of it. And so I'm really excited that I'm living through that myself, as well as preaching it to clients, because it's felt really good. And I know that I'm going to have to continue to employ it as my endurance training continues to grow, because I know so much more patience has to take place, because these training sessions are long, they're drawn out, they get dirty, they're super lonely. Last night out in the dark in the trails from 9 to 10:43, there was one person that was out camping, and they probably thought I was crazy because I ran by them 3 times. But I mean, it's just lonely. It's nothing literally but millions of crickets, and then eyes out in the forest, because you have your headlamp on and you catch eyes, and there's raccoons and there's deer, and you're praying it's not a mountain lion. And I actually had 2 wild cats jump out in front of me last night. One out in front of me about 15 yards of my first lap that scared the crap out of me. About hung it up right there. I got around. And then on my 3rd lap through, I had one actually run by my feet and into the bushes like 5 yards in front of me. And I was like, what in the world? And just like little wild cats, they're like feral cats, but they're just wild out there. So it scares the crap out of you, and it kind of keeps you alert, but it can be definitely lonely. And the journey of when you have to get things done can be lonely. It can be drawn out. It can take so much discipline. But if you just employ that patience, I know the patience portion of it is going to be so huge for me as I continue on this style of training, because a lot of times it's easy just to think about being done, and then what happens? That pace ramps up, which then inhibits you from going as long as what needs to be done, and it just gets you out of the flow and the training protocol at hand. So patience, enjoying where you're at, being really present within the situation. I know it sounds funny, but as you experience that, work on employing those things, and they definitely can employ into other areas of your life, whether you're at work, or you're in another journey. But just employing that patience, really being where your feet are at, and working through that and training through that will make such a massive difference on your total outcome, because we can get really impatient, and that can really throw us off. It can really mess up the mindset. And so I'm pumped, you guys. I wanted to share a little bit of that with everyone this morning, on where my training's been at, but also not just the training, the mindset that has to adjust with the training, and how that mindset correlates and integrates into our life, how much difference that can make in our life. And so I want to share that with you, share that with my clients that I know are listening as well, and how beneficial I know it can be. I hope it really adds a ton of value for you guys as you're going about your day as well. So you guys, that's the podcast today. I hope it connected with you. If it did, share it with a friend that you think needs to hear it as well. All of those little things, those shares, the taking a screenshot, posting up on Instagram or Facebook definitely helps us out, helps us get our word out, helps us grow our small business as well. You guys, it's all about living beyond average. That is what the mantra is here. You know that at Run to Gun and Secret Supplements, if you follow it for any time at all, that it's the live beyond average mindset. So I hope it connects. Crush the rest of your day. We'll see you later.